Hello and welcome to Eye on Africa. I'm Clarisse Fortuné. Our top stories. COP28 enters the final hours of climate negotiations. Meanwhile, researchers in the Sahel region are working on how to reduce emissions from livestock farming. Another dire warning from WFP. Food insecurity continues to worsen in West and Central Africa, with 50 million people to be hit by hunger. Singing 60 years of independence, patriotic music in Kenya that used to denounce colonialism still plays today a political tune. COP28 in Dubai was due to end today, but is now running over after a fossil fuel rift. Some are hoping the world will commit to phasing out coal, oil and gas, but for many countries, the transition will be challenging, like in the agricultural sector. Ruminants like cows and sheep account for about a third of all greenhouse gas emissions. Livestock reared in the Sahel yield less meat and milk than those in Europe, but produce just as much dangerous methane. Scientists in the region are working on how to reduce emissions from livestock farming. Our reporters Sarah Sako, Aminatou Diallo and Sam Bradpiece have more.
At 9 a.m, it's time for researchers to conduct their daily test here at the Dara Zootechnics Centre. They are collecting what's left of these cereal crops.
We are collecting what wasn't eaten after 24 hours.
The team has been giving varying amounts of feed to a group of Goya cattle over the past 15 days. The aim is to calculate the optimum amount of feed needed to nourish the animal while limiting emissions from their burps and farts.
The higher the level of ingestion, the less the animal produces methane. There is a link between animals and greenhouse gas emissions.
Some believe that rearing livestock in the Sahel is particularly polluting. Cattle here produce as much methane as those in Europe, but do not provide as much milk or meat. But the researchers believe that this measure doesn't reflect the overall environmental impact of livestock farming in the region. They note that when cattle range over long distances, they help spread seeds through their manure and stimulate plant growth.
Here we have devices called dendrometers, which are used to measure the growth of root systems in order to assess carbon capture in trees.
The project began in 2020 and currently covers Senegal, Burkina Faso and Niger. It hopes to spread further in the region to fulfill a key mission.
We want to be able to help farmers adopt less costly feeding practices, but also teach them how to manage their environments so that it's useful and productive in a sustainable way.
According to the World Bank's most recent estimation, 20 million people in the Sahel depend on livestock farming.
And South Africa, the 11th biggest greenhouse gas emitter, is to build new nuclear plants. The country, which is battling crippling power blackouts, has announced its plans to add 2,500 megawatts of nuclear power. South Africa has the continent's only nuclear power station, but is currently only working at half capacity.
So we're going out to ensure that we're able to get that additional 2,500 megawatts of nuclear capacity to ensure that we're able to meet the issues of national security and energy sovereignty. So this is a significant milestone because we know that historically in the recent past the process was mired in controversy. Now we are happy that we've been able to iron out the issues related to how the procurement process needs to unfold.
Food insecurity continues to worsen in West and Central Africa, with the number of hungry people set to reach near 50 million people between June and August next year. The World Food Programme says one of the most affected areas is Central Sahel, with acute hunger, mainly driven by conflict, like in Niger, as Harold Gerald explains.
Nearly 50 million people will be concerned by food insecurity by June 2024. across West and Central Africa, according to the World Food Programme. In Niger, 4 million people depending on humanitarian assistance. A lot of them have been displaced because of armed conflict. Now, a political crisis is making life worse for communities that are already struggling.
80% of people affected by food insecurity are living in war zones, especially in central Sahel and in Liptako-Gourma region, where Mali, Burkina Faso and Niger have their borders. In Niger, we could see a significant increase of food prices. Some products aren't even on the market anymore. We should bring them to people, but we can't. Also, we noticed that people couldn't easily get fertilizers or seeds because of economic sanctions.
Right now, in Burkina Faso, Mali and Niger, the cost of a daily nutritious diet is 2 times higher than the daily minimum wage in the region. But still, in Niger, because of ECOWAS sanctions after July's coup, humanitarian aid reaching the country isn't enough.
Next Rwanda elections will take place in July next year, both presidential and parliamentary polls. President Paul Kagame is now preparing to run for a 4th term in office. His only known challenger is opposition Green Party leader Frank Habineza. In 2015, Paul Kagame had presided over constitutional amendments that allow him to run for more terms and stay in power until 2034. And Zimbabwe's opposition party, the Coalition of Citizens for Change, said it will contest 7 of 9 by-elections after voting took place this weekend. These special elections were organized after the recall of 14 MPs and 8 senators last October. Eunice Masson, Caroline Dumais and Farah Mugano tell the whole story.
7 MP seats out of 9 contested in the weekend by-elections were won by the ruling ZANU-PF, as opposition candidates were not allowed to run. In this district, voting did not even take place. The ruling party's candidate was declared elected. Opposition activists expressed their dismay.
I'm so disappointed with the ZEC, especially the election committee that was summoned to that district.
We are pained by this, but we won't give up. We will continue through the legal channels.
A Zimbabwe court barred most opposition candidates from running for the by-election following a recall in Parliament last October. Singezo Chabangu, who presented himself as the opposition's interim Secretary-General, sent a letter to the Speaker of Parliament claiming the lawmakers had ceased to be members. In response, the MPs filed appeals at the High Court accusing Chabangu of being an imposter. They said he was never elected.
But our argument is very simple. We don't know Chabangu. We don't know where he comes from. He must go back to that area that he comes from.
However, the courts ruled in favor of Chabangu. An activist who was vocal against these recalls was kidnapped and killed in November. Opposition leader Nelson Chamisa says the ruling ZANU-PF is trying to strengthen its position in Parliament.
This matter is only but an indication of the country sliding into further abyss and tyranny.
Analysts argue that the ruling party took advantage of the fact that the Coalition of Citizens for Change was never formally structured.
But in the same vein, if there is no constitution, no structures, what is the status of Chabangu? And why does the system entertain him as a would-be Secretary General? So it's a murky affair.
A murky affair that can lead to a 2/3 majority in Parliament for the ruling party. This may allow President Emerson Mnangagwa, who was re-elected for a 2nd and final term in August, to run for another term, as he will be able to change the constitution.
December 12 is Jamhuri Day, Jamhuri Republic in Swahili, as Kenya marks 60 years since the country gained its independence from the British. A chance to listen to patriotic music with lyrics denouncing colonial injustice. Today, those songs can be used as a political tool. Our correspondents in Nairobi, Olivia Bizot and Elodie Cousin, have the story.
spot where Kenya became independent, this choir is rehearsing for the national holiday. They're singing a patriotic song, one of many that has been composed since the country became a republic 60 years ago.
This is the day when we remember where we have come from, where we are, and where we want to go to. So without patriotic songs, then we lose our culture.
The singers were selected by Kenya's Permanent Presidential Music Commission, created in 1988 by former President Moi to influence national memory and history. It continues to play a critical role.
The music is a medium through which we are socializing our young people to understand the ethos and philosophies of our country and why we are proud.
However, using patriotic songs as a political tool is a concern for music experts like Tabu Asusa. He believes the Commission prioritizes politics over musical talent.
We have a very good account of history in terms of politics, but in terms of culture, we have none. And it's something that I don't subscribe to. I like musicians to be politically aware and conscious and be pro the people, not for any particular party.
Over the past decade, Afrobeats have taken centre stage. In the face of this competition, Kenya's Music Commission wants to preserve its patriotic songs, now more than ever.
Tributes continue to pour in for South African singer Zahara after her death at the age of 36. The award-winning artist burst into the music scene in 2011 with her debut album, Loliwe, selling out in 72 hours. Zahara sang in chorus as a child and taught herself guitar. Her voice drew comparisons to Brenda Fassie, Tracy Chapman and India Arie, among others. She released 5 albums and won 17 South African Music Awards. In 2019, her manager revealed she was battling liver disease. And that's the end of this edition of Eye on Africa. We leave you with some music of Zahara. Thank you for watching.